Anywho, all right, it is the bottom of the hour. So, welcome to Scalping Mindset. This is the second session we're having of this new class. And basically, what I'm going to do is we're gonna role play here. I'm gonna role play. What I'm gonna do is just my computer's always running. When the market's open, my computers are running, and I frequently will walk by and kind of stick my head in my office and say, "Oh wow, look at that! There's a this setup or that setup," and I won't trade right off of that. I still go through what I call my context procedure, but I have it down to the kind of, I can do it in a matter of a couple of seconds. And I used to have a rule where I couldn't trade for 5 minutes. So I had to be at my desk looking at context for at least 5 minutes. I've done it so many times now that I don't have that rule anymore, although that's a good rule if you're new. But mine is now I just have to go through my context procedure. So what is that? Really quickly, you guys are looking at my context monitor, and across the top are the TPOs. And I'm just stream of consciousness. What do I see? And I focus mostly on the ES, but I look to see, correlation and lack of correlation and why it may or may not be correlated. All right, so ES, top right of the TPOs. We have a single print below us. We have a big tail down there. We've got an old poor weak high above us. We're trying to decide which of the two recent ranges is the one we're going to stay in. You can see that's been doing this battle for a while. There's the range up here, the new one that the news got us to, and then there's the one we're in right now. And we overshot it, and now we're kind of in the middle of it again. So NQ looks very similar. So does RTY. YM continues to be more range bound even than the ES is. It's in a tighter range. So I'm looking at this and saying, what the hedge fund guys were saying a week ago, not today, but a week ago. I think I still agree with that it's going to take an outside event to get the market out of this range. And we don't know what the event's going to be, and we don't know which way it's going to go. But clearly we're forming an apex here in this range, and we're pushing back and forth. If you draw a line down, the top's over here, and you draw a line from here up, you get an apex over here somewhere. And the idea is just, the tighter it gets in there, the more aggressive a breakout is. And guess what? Tomorrow we have an economic number, and that will probably break us out pretty aggressively, and we'll test one end or the other or both. And for the trading contest, that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. Just either setting it to go with whichever way it goes. That's one tactic. Another one would be to try to get filled on a real far out extreme to fade it back into the range. There's a couple of ways you could just throw an account away tomorrow trying that, and I'm sure a bunch of people will. So I've got one designated for that purpose as well. Anyway, back to context. So that's kind of the TPO worldview. Let's real quickly, Lee brought this up in the morning at the IDES, but yeah, this is what we're looking at right now with the Fibonacci retracements. We're still in the ambush zone. We're kind of trendless, but we've held the lows and we're not going down anymore. The technical analysis people want to argue we're going up. I think it's hard to argue that. You couldn't convince me of that, but we're not going down aggressively. We're battling 4,100 after seeing 4,200-ish getting sold. On the session, we do have a zero print right below us. You can see where we're trading now, and so that's likely to fill. And then there's a big delta below us. The deltas are the wrong way around on this particular period, so that's not telling us much. Or excuse me, on this session rather. That's where things are out of whack, and right now, we're below the area we're battling where this big high volume node was. So, I don't have a lot more of context to see there other than what's going on with the internals real fast. They're strong, but not rally strong. They're just not, we're going down weak. We're, at 1,200 in the advanced decline. The tick has been strong all day, but the last couple of minutes, it's been very weak. And that could be the end of the move for the morning or for the day. With the news coming tomorrow, it's hard to read anything else into this action. So, contextually, it's kind of a big zero. Microsoft's very strong. Tesla was holding up the NASDAQ earlier. It's not anymore as much. It's still down, but Microsoft is relatively strong. Remember, Microsoft was holding it down last week. This is a rebound effect based on the earnings drop it had last week. So there's so many, no particular current here in either direction is saying, oh, this is a really good thing to be doing, long or short. So, it's pretty much middle of the road. Having said that, let's switch over to my main screen and let's see. Okay. So anyway, like I said earlier, I am in the contest. I'm doing pretty good in this account. I decided to trade them all one at a time and not to try doing a lot of copying. I was copying earlier, and there's really no reason to do that. It's better to just trade one aggressively at a time, I think. Unless later in the week that might change when I'm trying to have a big balance in a couple of them, but who knows? Tactics, you can argue tactics. There's a lot of good tactics to this type of a contest. So I'm only trading it in NQ, which is the far left dome. And on the next one over, I've got ES and then YM and RTY. This is liquidity for ES on the liquidity heat map in Auction Vista. So anyway, what I want to do, we're right at the bottom of the range. And, for my scalping, I look at, what's the statistical range and what's the statistical extremes of the volume. And right now we're near the bottom of the range. So it could, but if this is a trend up day, this could be a long here between here and 0, 0 or down around 92.5. But I'm not convinced it's a trend up day. So I don't know that I want to trade that. So then the next question I ask myself, again, this is my scalping execution mindset. Is there in the very short term, is it obviously going to go one way or the other to me based on what I'm seeing? And the range, we're at the bottom of the range. So that's arguing, maybe there's a long here, maybe not. If the range breaks down, maybe it's a short. Certainly I like it between 92.5 and 0, 0 because that's an area it tends to bounce a lot. And right now it's trading at 5. So I don't like this either way at the moment. And the price action's toward the downside, not aggressively, but for the moment, that's what it's doing. So, the kind of binary trade right now is some maybe along at 92, maybe along at 0, 0. Remember what I said about the tick a few minutes ago? It was really strong, but then it got weak. It's improving again. That argues in favor of maybe along again. So again, it's context, but it's in favor of the long side. If that continues to improve, it's been strong. We're at SD1 here, just about. SD1 is at 81, so it's a little further down, but we've pulled back significantly from SD2. So, again, if I had to make a case here, I'd say it's going down, but I would be looking for a long. You can also see ES is sitting right on top of its value area. And, scalping under these kind of conditions in a contest like this is all about, just the odds all the time. Okay, it just traded down to 0, 0 here. So let's see if there's a long setup. Oh, it went away pretty fast too. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put a couple of orders a little lower down here and see if I can just scalp some bounces back on, or some rubber band snaps here in NQ. There's the top of the range up there where the ledge is. We're still well above the value area in NQ though. It's down here. So again, I really like this trade in the low 90s better, but since it's the bottom of the range and since I'm in a contest where, you want to be aggressive, I would go ahead and try to get a little long off here. Even just that last bounce was a nice little 5-point long as I was explaining that to you. So let's see if we can grab a sweep down maybe and get long into it. You can see the liquidity is getting funky over here. I guess that, we already got the auction numbers on the 3 and 6 month bills, so there's no news coming at the moment. So remember, even though, it's a contest and I'm trading aggressively, it's still NQ. I want it to come to me. I don't want to chase it around on the dome. Your odds of getting ticks are really, really good when you're not chasing it on the dome. When you let it come to you and then, then you were right or you weren't. But if you're chasing it, you have to be more than just right. You have to be right and you're catching up, and that's a bad position to be in. One other thing I wanted to mention, I'm only doing this in NQ, with minimum 1 lots to max 12. It's a $3,000 trailing drawdown. Problem right now is I'm already quite profitable. I'm up almost $2,000 in this account. And so the drawdown has already come up to 98,900. So got to be careful with these trailing drawdowns when you're profitable and taking profits immediately. Lee's example of, 10 days, 15 days in a row of $100 off your peak, and the trailing drawdown hits you. So this one, 3,000's like a little more room in it, but remember, NQ can move really fast, and you can trade MNQ if you want, but I don't see the point, because in this type of trading contest, commissions are going to matter, and so I'm much better off playing for less size and playing it in the mini and not the micro. But I am swarming them, so I've swarmed up to 12. I'm prepared to do that. Again, the only risk here you have is that you hit the trailing drawdown, and you can rebuy back into the contest for $9, and so people have a lot of incentive to push it. But you also want to make it, if you can make a nice 2 to 10 grand a day between here and Friday, and then put in a really nice Friday, YOLOing it a bit. Yeah, I think that gives you a good chance of being in the top 10, assuming one person doesn't just get lucky and YOLO it and happen to be copying and get all 10 of them, which is really likely that'll happen. But if that doesn't happen, I think there's a good chance. Anyway, so yes, we still have UB up at the high there in ES, and we have a price rejector on the pullback on the session, and I believe on there it is on the 30-minute. Here's the UB. There's an old ton of supply right above there. So I don't know. I'm not reading anything into that right now. I'm not looking to fade this. I'm looking, again, I liked it long down there at 5 or 0, and I have orders down below that, but I don't like it long at 20, because 20 is a frequent spot for it to pause and head back down if it's going to do that. So again, if you're going to take your trades and take them aggressively, you got to wait till you get a good spot to do it. And, further up could get interesting. I don't think we're going to just keep rallying going into the number tomorrow. So, if we get up to like 540 or 550, which is pretty much the top of the ledge here, that gets interesting to fade. And again, down where I have the orders 0 and below down to 92.5 is probably the best spot to get long, because the odds of it going back to 20 are pretty good, and that's a real nice little rip if you have a 3 or 4 lot on down there. That could be 10 grand all by itself if you get aggressive. So those are the opportunities. And again, notice how contrasted with the other sessions that I do, where I'm teaching trading technique and good risk management and how do you pass an eval and stay funded and get to withdrawal. This is not that. I haven't been trading aggressively yet, but what I'm explaining, the ideas here are, aggressive win a contest ideas. They're not, how far can you take it? Okay. Let's see. It's just about the P&L here. There's no other rule except the drawdown. Okay, we're going to take this ledge out. So let's see if we can fade this up here. I think it'll be a good fade, but I want that ledge to go. So again, 40 or 50 up here, up here. Let's see if we can get a little short on. Okay, we got that one. And again, I'm going to take profits pretty quick here because of the way the contest works, and also because of this price action. I'm just scalping this ledge break. I'm fading it. Oh, I almost got that other one. I missed it by a couple of ticks. Let's see if we can get it on the next push. Okay, let's take one at the market. That one should fill. Cool. Okay, now I've got 3. And again, I'm going to take profits fast. That's the whole idea here. So this is a 3NQ also, so it's a decent amount of leverage. Let's put those 2 together. See if we can get a couple more up here. And then the targets I'm always looking for are the first couple of high volume nodes, and there's 2 right next to each other here. So, I want to get the first couple of contracts off profitably pretty quickly, and this one doesn't want to bounce much. So boom. All right, that's another $100 with a 3 lot, That's the kind of trading that you have to kind of do to be competitive in these contests. And I could even be more aggressive, but I just wanted to give you an example of it. Let's see if it can blow this ledge again. It's trying, and I definitely will fade it if it does. Again, it's not that I think this is a great short. It's just a real quick, easy profit, scalping it short. Trying to play it long is a different ball game. And it's just much more my style to fade these things, particularly when we are relatively horizontal in the LRCs. I'm going to take one right here and try to get a couple more further up. We'll take this off right on this high volume node. See if we can get another $50 bill there on that one. Almost did. It almost got there. Okay, it's going to blow the ledge again. So let's get another couple going here. Again, it just almost got me profit. There we go. Got that one and got that one. Okay, that's another $60. So this is the idea, guys. And again, it's a contest. I can be aggressive. The worst I could do is blow up, but I'm actually doing really well in this account, so I don't want to just blow it up. So this is not what I would call really aggressive. This is mildly aggressive because it's not a great setup. The best way to fade a ledge is when it really aggressively breaks it and turns really hard. And it's not doing that. It's holding up here. I still think we could go higher. And so, the next kind of level I like is around 50. But I'll because I have some room to work with here, I could scale into this. In other words, I'm swarming it. And given that these are minis, I'm baby swarming right now, but I could get more aggressive than that. But up to about a 5 lot is what I've been doing so far in the contest accounts. And if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. I will get to them. I'm just trying to kind of focus on what I'm doing here, so I can do a decent job if I'm going to do it in front of you. Okay, here comes the ledge break again. Okay, I got one. I'm going to put on a couple more real fast at the market because it turned really sharply there. Got the first one off profitably. Let's get the next one off right here, and then we'll see if we can trail one down, catch a runner. I'm going to protect this last contract. Okay, got another $100 on that 3 lot. And it's going to blow the ledge again. So let's get set up to do this again. Wash, rinse, repeat. And again, once I looked at that context that I went through at the beginning of the session, the TPO view and the internals and all that, now I'm just totally focused on the trading and the price action. I don't need any other information. I don't need to look at another footprint. I can see what ES is doing. And just by the way it's behaving at the top of the range, I know it's probably going to go higher. And a really sudden aggressive push is going to be a really good place to get aggressively short. Again, just for a snapback, not for, all the way down. It's just snapping back nicely when it does. So there's good profit there. And, the long breaks, you could go with those too, but you never know where those are going to stop. Scalping for me is much more about being able to grab quick little chunks that are really obviously likely to happen, like, a tail at the top back to a high volume node. That's a really predictable price action pattern. And hopefully it's not at my end if everyone else can hear me. And we did take out the UB. We don't have a price rejector up here, but we've got 0 by 54, not a lot of absorption either. So it probably wants to go higher, but I still think that's certainly fadeable, at least on scalps. And again, these types of contests you can win by YOLOing and catching huge runners. But because of the way the trailing drawdown works, you're much more likely to do well by catching lots of good scalps. It's definitely the people that are scalpers have a bit of an edge in a contest like this. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a scalper. It's just the nature of the contest. Anything like this where it's just all P&L. But if somebody gets leveraged into a good trade, from say the middle, inside out to UB and to some old artifact somewhere, that's 10 points away, that, if they're leveraged into that well enough, those can blow it up really big. Assuming that person's disciplined enough to immediately grab that profit and get back to the sidelines, which is hard to do when you're trading that type of setup. You have to give that type of setup more room than you would as a scalper. So, my point about all this is you really have to be tactical about how you trade these contests if you're going to trade them. They are very tactical in nature. Because the people that can just YOLO them and that don't have any skill, and then the people that have a lot of skill are, leveraging their skill with less risk, basically. The only concern I have about risk is that trailing drawdown, which now is, because I've got so much profit, unfortunately now it's getting hairy for now. I've got to really keep just putting the profits up. I'm over 3,000 on my P&L, and so my trailing drawdown is now above 100,000, and so that's, you have to really be careful because it doesn't take much of a pullback, and all of a sudden you're in trouble with the trailing drawdown. But again, for scalpers, you should never be taking a big loss, so you shouldn't be in that situation. And I mean, no trader should take a big loss, but as a scalper, you should have really clearly defined limits on what you're going to do. And in a contest like this, I don't use any kind of circuit breaker. What I do, however, is I have a per trade dollar limit. And since this is the mini and not the micro and it's NQ, you got to be a little bit liberal with that. And basically, I'm using about $400. So, a trade could get that far against me if it was a really good setup and the setup was still there, I'd stay in it. But if I don't take losses bigger than that with the $3,000 drawdown trailing, given that I'm profitable, that gives me enough of a cushion that if it's worse than that, I blow it up and I'll just go grab another entry in the contest and continue going for it. You really have to think that way to succeed in winning these things, because they're not about being consistent. They're not about making a certain amount of money every day. It's like, who can make the most money without blowing up? And that's why it's fun, but it's, you don't want to trade your own money that way. Oh boy, I've been, I was hoping we'd get another good setup here, and we're not. This is just, I could do the range setup here, which I think I might just show you guys. If we get down to 20, I'll do it down there, where I'm just gonna, go in with some size and look if I can get, 5, 6, 8 ticks, 10 ticks, 12 ticks. And again, this is always going to be an NQ because it's an NQ contest. So, Annie Hoodle. Oh, the internals are now flat. The tick's at 0. The advanced decline's still plus 1,300, but it's flat. It's not going up. I think the market's kind of sitting out of gas here. This could be an interesting short in NQ. I'm thinking I might just take that, except now I'm a little late. Now I'm not. Do I want to try it here? It's already come down. Let's try it. My mouse. Shoot. I was shorting 28 and my mouse button jammed. Hang on, I got to swap my mice out. I have spares of everything, which you learn when you do a lot of trading or anything at your computer. That's weird that happened right when I was trying to get that trade. Oh, well. It would have worked nicely for about 3 points. Hang on, let me go get another mouse so that doesn't happen again. That was weird. Right when I pressed the button just stuck down. That's what happened, which means it's doity. Okay. All right, let me switch Okay, now is this nice? Yeah, this one's working. Okay. All right. Well, we missed that trade anyway. I liked it short right on that high volume node, and right around down to here or 20 was what I was looking at. And it's already done the 3-pointer. And again, in NQ, those pay. Be careful. You obviously don't want to do this in micros because, at a buck a round trip, 10 micros is going to cost you, a lot. It's going to cost you more than, almost, it's not quite double. It's, a little less than that, but it's enough that if you're scalping, it could make the difference in your P&L between winning and losing. So you're better off just trading the minis only and scaling where appropriate there. And, again, it's about keeping that drawdown protected. But when you have a good setup, in these contests, you have to scale. And, people are going to go for that 12 lot a lot. Frequently, they're going to go for it. And, people are going to catch runners. And they're mostly getting lucky, and they probably won't be lucky all week. But, you have to work that direction if you want to compete. And it's fun, as I said this morning in the IDE session, it's fun to do this every now and then because it's just a different way of trading, and it gives you a really It gives you a break from being really intense, and you're still focused on risk management. And it's like doing a drill for money. You can win money if you do your drill well. USB mouse plugged in case this happens. Extra keyboard. Yeah, I always have. Yeah, the mouse button got dirty, Donna. That's it stuck. I have multiple mice, and mine are all wired. Well, I have backup wired ones, but I have the Logitech MX Master 3s, and I also have two of the vertical mice, the Logitech verticals. And what I do is they're all rechargeable. So I always have at least two backups of everything: monitors, keyboards, mice, cables. There's not anything can go down, and I can back up and running in minutes. If you're going to do this, for a living, you have to think that way. I have two UPSs, two power supplies. One backs the other one up, and that one's on the AC power, the utility power. Boy, that short idea is really working well now. Too bad the mouse stuck on that. Oh well. Let's watch and see if we can get another entry. Now I don't like it because that trade was down to here, and now it's the bottom of the range again. It's that 20 area that I was playing a minute ago. So now I don't like it as much. But boy, that high volume note up there, that was a really good one. So anyway, as I said, I've got another commitment today at the top of the hour. So we will go till 9 o'clock, which is about 5 more minutes. And again, the idea is have a thing you do. This is what I call my context proc or procedure, like I did and I'm going to run through it right now again. I look at the TPO view, I look at the session footprint, I look at the 30-minute footprints and the rotations, and just get a general sense, what's going on, what's price doing, where's supply, where's demand, what are the internals doing, is there one equity holding things down like Tesla is today? As that improves, that could make a big difference. And then once I've done that, I go and I focus on the right now price action, and I look at the very short-term range as defined by regression with the LRCs. And then I look at extremes of the volume as defined by standard deviations of the VWAP. And I do that for the session. And I also do that, the VWAP one now for the week. Particularly on a week like this, as the week goes on, that gets more informative. I noticed that the week of NFP and FOMC. That's when I was playing around with it. I was trying to, besides just price, I was looking for another way to measure extremes, and the SDs of the VWAP do that really well, but not when we've really pushed extremes really far all week. And so just switching the anchoring from, I'm doing them both. I'm anchoring for the session, and I'm also anchoring for the week. So Donna, what it is, I hate to say this, dirt as in I probably had something on my fingers and it got on the button and fell in the crack, like, a piece of a muffin or something. Or, I tend to do that sometimes when I'm working alone here, particularly with the dogs, because they're always coming in with all kinds of slobber and goo. And so it gets messy sometimes. That's what I meant. Don't eat and trade. Yeah, I have a specific area where I put liquids, so if I knock them over, they won't ruin anything. But every now and then my hands are sticky particularly when I'm dog sitting, which I am right now. It's pretty impossible with two big doodles not to get messy. Anyway, all right, so that's the story. Are there any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we will wrap it up. It's pretty quiet right here in the middle. I have, like I said, a really nice little day going here in the contest. I'm going to decide how aggressive to get in the contest, how focused I am on it after I see what numbers people put up for the first day or two on the leaderboard. If they're just insane numbers, then I'll know people are doing crazy YOLOs, and I'll probably, not care about it. I'll continue, but I won't be as focused. But if it looks reasonable, I'll stay focused on it all week and see what we can do, and maybe we'll do some live sessions overnight around it. Washable keyboards. I didn't even know that was well. I know there's ones you can protect, but
membrane
I really am
keyboards. But
membrane keyboards. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I'm really particular about my keyboards. I have MX keyboards also, the Logitech ones. I really like those, and so it's just they're easy to clean. You just shoot a little, 90% rubbing
Isopropyl.
alcohol. Yeah, isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and then you blow it out with a little compressed air. And this happens now and then. This is why I keep spares. Also, when you're trading every day, my mouse takes a beating. It's a lot of work. And, I routinely use up mice, and all of the backup ones are just the old ones. So I always got, two or three. Anyway, listen, I've got my appointment, so I'm going to have to run. Everybody have a good rest of your Monday. If you're in the contest, good luck. I will talk to you and check in with you tomorrow, and we'll see how everyone's doing. All righty. Thank
Yes,
you,
indeed.
everyone. Thank you,
Catch you
JVC.
later.
See you later.
Bye-bye.